Ini juga lebih jadi. Hi, everyone. It's Hallie. Apologies for the reschedule of this webinar. I have two computers, so that I have one as a backup, and both of them were not working last week. So I apologize for that. I hope as many as possible of you are able to attend today and listen in later. And we're going to be talking today about how to focus on your mental health at work. This is a bigger topic, I think, than it really ever has been in the workforce, just because so many things have been going on in the past several years with COVID and everything else, and with the economy today and people worrying about layoffs, and if they've been laid off, also the people left behind, who are having to take on more work, etc. So I think the good news is that we're more comfortable talking about these things than we ever have been before. And that's kind of the positive about this topic, is that people are more focused on it than they have before. And supervisors and employees and employers, or at least trying to pay attention to it in some way, shape, or form more. It's going to vary depending on where you work, obviously. But here's what we're finding, and let's go ahead and dive in. Just as a quick reminder, you will receive a copy of the recording from today. You can listen to it anytime later on, and you'll receive that automatically afterwards. So what we're going to be talking about today is, how to manage your mental health at work, or focus on it a little bit more, specific tips to help you with that. And as part of this, it is also about work-life balance, because that's, something that we're always wanting to focus on, regardless of your situation. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Hallie Crawford. I'm a certified career coach, speaker, and author. My company is based in Atlanta, Georgia, but we have coaches all over the country, as well as a resume writer who helps people with their materials. I've been coaching and training since 2002, so it's been a long time, but luckily I love what I do, and our coaches do as well. And my undergraduate degree is from Vanderbilt University, and I have a graduate degree from the University of Illinois as well. And the advice that we're going to give you today is advice that we give to all of our clients to help them achieve greater work-life balance, and also be focusing on their mental health at work a little bit more. You should receive a copy of the recording of this automatically within 24 hours. So just if you want to listen in later, just keep an eye on your email. And again, apologies everyone for the reschedule. Both of my computers were down last week at the last minute. So here's what we're going to be talking about today. There's 5 basic things that we talk with our clients about, or work with them on, to help them achieve greater balance and focus on their mental health professionally. And I would argue that all of these kind of go beyond just the professional realm, but obviously that's what we're going to be focusing on the majority of our time today. We're going to talk about external definitions and how they can define us, and how we need to start stripping those away and limiting beliefs and those kinds of things, because they can impact our satisfaction at work and how we're taking care of ourselves at work as well. We'll talk about our life balance wheel. We'll discuss why we feel it's important to focus on your values to attend to your mental health too, and talk about establishing meaningful career goals. So they're not just goals that you're putting out there because you feel like you should, but ones that you actually feel really motivated to work towards. And then setting boundaries, because that's a really practical thing that I think we can all do a better job of, and a really important piece to managing your work-life balance and your mental health. So let's start first with why this is such an important topic. I referenced it a few minutes ago, but there's so many different statistics out there. If you take a look at this next slide about what's going on for people. Some people are feeling burned out. Some people are really stressed and concerned about possibly being laid off. Other people have been laid off. People who work from home tend to log more hours. And although plenty of our clients will tell us they love working from home, some people say they can't stand it. It just varies depending on the person and their personality type and what's important to them. So this mental health issue is just such a big deal. I think also with everything going on in the world, overseas and everything else too. So we really need to be paying attention to this and being more open about having these conversations and how we can help each other. As we all know, if you look at this next slide, longer working hours equals more stress for a lot of different reasons. Anxiety, depression, lots of different things can happen from logging too many hours, not taking breaks. And it's what's interesting that our clients have told us, and I've experienced as well, is when you're working solely from home, people will tell us that there's this blurred sense or passage of time. We're just moving from Zoom meeting to Zoom meeting, and it's almost like we don't even know, oh, it was lunchtime a couple hours ago, and I totally missed that. So we really need to pay attention to these things. That's why we're here today. The good news is you can focus on this. And what we find, and this is there's three things that I want to say here listed at the bottom of this slide. Number one, life balance is a fluid thing. It is not something that you say to yourself, okay, once I achieve it and everything's in one place, it's going to be perfect and that's it. It's something that's going to ebb and flow over the course of your life. And balance is unique to each person. What life balance looks like to you can be completely different from what it looks like to me and someone else. So it's how you define it, not how anyone else defines it. And it's something that you need to maintain and pay attention to and check in with over time. It's not a one and done thing. So this whole idea is that it really needs to be an ongoing thing that you consider and add in as part of your strategic career plan, like that self-care element of it. The second thing that I wanted to bring up that's so important to know too is that what we ways or elements or definitions, I guess, in your life or things that you think about how you define yourself. Are you solely defining yourself way too much based on your job, based on your salary or anything else? So lots of different things can happen to us. We get caught up in our daily lives and we start to move away from what's really important to us and our values. And in some cases, we might inherit values, norms, or priorities from society or family that actually don't work for us. And so one of the first things we want you to do is to think about, okay, are there any external definitions I have and ways that I'm living my life based on shoulds or what other people think is important versus what's important to me? And when you think about like a compass, I think this is just a really good kind of analogy for this. A compass, as we know, is used for orientation and direction. And when there's interference or deviation from what's really important to us and who we are as a person and as a professional, we can get off track and that work-life balance can go way out of whack and it impacts, as a result, our mental health. So from this slide, what I want you to take away is we want you to look inside for what balance means to you, what your values are, and what's most important to you, what your mental health looks like for you from the inside out versus comparing to other people, external definitions or societal norms. And I'll give you a quick example as we look at this next slide. For a while, when I first started my coaching practice, everyone says, put your phone away. Don't look at work email when you're on vacation. You really need to take a break. Well, I did that for my first several vacations. And I ended up being more stressed coming back to all this pile of emails. And it was like worse than what I do now is I will actually sometimes work a little bit on the weekends. And sometimes I will check my email when I'm on vacation. It makes me feel better because I feel like I'm staying on top of the things ones that I need to. And when I come back, I'm not going to get slammed with stuff. That works for me. I'm not saying that that's the thing that you have to do, but there was this external definition that people would always say, right? You should do it this way. But I found a different way that actually works better for me. So what we want you to do is remove those external definitions and set your schedule and actions according to those internal definitions as much as possible. Don't compare yourself to other people. Think about what's really important to you. So one of our first steps is on the left-hand side here. It's listed as a poll. We don't do polls during these because it's a short period of time, but we want you to think about as a first homework assignment is, do you have values, norms, or priorities or definitions that aren't working for you anymore that we need to move away from, and create new definitions for yourself that actually work really well for who you are as a person, aligned with your values and your priorities. So the goal here with this first step is to become more like this Mobius strip, which is on the left-hand side. You want to imagine that your internal world, who you are as a person, your values, etc., as much as possible, it's mirrored by the external world and vice versa. So you've got that harmony between these two things. Now we realize that you're not going to be totally authentic every single second of the day at work. We all have a professional persona, and we're supposed to have that, and that's fine. But if you are in a profession that is not aligned enough with your values, that steps on them, or where you're not able to be as authentic as you'd like to be in your workplace, it's going to impact your mental health. So take a look at these other possible action steps. This first one we already talked about. Where do you think you might be defining yourself externally? We want you to consider journaling about what success means to you. It can take 5 minutes, but it can give you some really good insight about how you want your professional life to look and how we can create better work-life balance and therefore mental health. Think about any limiting beliefs that you may have, comparing yourself to others, etc. And you want to also think another action step could be time management. One of the things that we have our clients do is to track their time for like 5 days at work to see where they're actually really spending their time. Because if your mental health is suffering in any way, shape, or form, getting a clear understanding of where you're spending your time could give you some clues to what needs to change and be adjusted so that you can feel a little bit better. So get out a journal and just keep track of it for the next 5 days. Because a lot of times people will say, well, I know where I'm spending my time, but when they actually write it down like this, it gives them some really good insights. Let's look next at step number 2, and this is our life balance wheel. We use this with clients at the very beginning of coaching with them, and we would recommend that you take this assessment now and reevaluate it at least every 6 months, maybe even every quarter. Depending on what's going on in your life. If you've got a lot of change happening right now, you probably want to look at it every quarter. One of the things we want you to do, and actually there's 4 steps here that we'll share with you. If you look on this first slide here, number 1, here's just an example of a life balance wheel that we use with the categories that we find are most common for people. You can always adjust them if it's appropriate for you to do so. The second thing we want you to do is, once you identify what those categories are for you, and they're listed here in this box, we want you to rate yourself in terms of your current state. Where are you on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being fantastic, as it relates to each of these areas. Now, remember, when you do this, we want you to then draw a line between the two of them. If you look at this next slide, this is a good example, because that can give you a sense of, okay, what's more out of whack than others, and remind you that, okay, if this was a wheel on your car, be a little bit bumpy. So the goal would be to try to move these out a little bit more towards a 10 or the highest rating. Now, a couple of things. The last 2 things we want you to do is, it's a great idea to define, once you've defined where you are now, to then define your desired future state. Take each of the categories and write about, for 5 minutes, what it would be like if it was in the right balance, quote unquote, for you. What would that be like? Some of our clients like to create a vision board around this. It's completely up to you, but not only understanding where you are now, but where you want to be can help you move in that direction and can help you understand the action steps that you need to take to move in that direction. And we said here on step number 4 with this to assess quarterly. That would be more if you're in the throes of things. It's every 6 months if things are kind of stable for you at this point. Okay. Now, I did want to say one thing. Remember what we said earlier about balance is fluid. The goal is not to have every single category like be at a 10 all the time. Don't let a perfectionist attitude come into play with this. Sometimes you are going to choose for your life to be out of balance. For example, if you're about to have a baby, if you are planning a wedding, or if some other big thing is going on in your life that you have chosen to make happen in a great way and it's exciting, your life is going to be a little bit out of balance. But the key is to be aware of that and be a choice about it and say, okay, I'm choosing to focus on this area of my life right now. So these areas may suffer just a little bit. What am I going to do about that? How can I plan around that? This will help your mental health. What happens to us is we feel worse even when we're at choice and trying to do something that creates irregularities in our life balance. If we don't plan for that as much as we can or do something to kind of manage around it, then we're going to get that much more stressed out. So, for example, when I was starting my coaching practice and I was still working full time, I realized that stuff at home was going to fall apart a little bit. So I communicated that to my friends and family that I needed their patience a little bit and maybe some help in certain areas. And I dealt with it with my husband to say, okay, look, this is the time we're going to spend together at other times because I've got 2 jobs going on. That helps your mental health enormously. Let's look at step number 3, and this is to understand and align your tasks at work, your day as much as you can, and your career path with your values. And we want you to think about your values because mental health obviously issues with it can come in a lot of different forms. And obviously, if you need additional support from a therapist, we highly recommend getting additional support when you need to go deeper with any of these things. And we find that one of the things at work is if you can honor your values a little bit more in your day-to-day life professionally, you're going to start to feel better because values are where you get your fulfillment. If you're not sure what your values are, one clue to start to identify what those are is to dig underneath your dreams, your interests, your passions, things you do outside of work, and thinking about what's cool about those and why you're drawn to them can give you clues to some of your possible values. That's why there's a mermaid on this slide. As a child, I wanted to be a mermaid at Weeki Wachee. And when I thought about that dream later in life and was trying to figure out my long-term career path, there were actually clues to values in that childhood dream that I actually possess still today. As part of defining your values, there's other ways you can do it. You can think about a peak experience in your life and what was cool about it for you. And think about what are the things that fulfill you in your work. Like, do you really enjoy interacting with your coworkers? And doing so on a more regular, consistent basis and planning for that would help you feel better. Do you need to take more breaks and get outside for a few minutes because that's one of your values? So there's different ways that you can define your values. And some of the action steps we want you to take are identify what those are and identify activities, tasks, clients that you enjoy working with, for example, inside and outside of work that can help you get those jolts of fulfillment during the course of your day. So whether you can or need to adjust your schedule, adjust how you tackle your projects, what's interesting about values is if you do something on a regular basis every single day to align with your values more, your mental health is going to be better because it's like you're filling that bucket of fulfillment, giving yourself a glass of water that's a bad analogy, but you get it. It kind of nurtures your spirit and your soul and will help you with that mental health. Okay. The reason why fulfillment is so important with your mental health, we just talked about that, And here are some examples on this slide. We'll just look at this for a second. A couple of things that you can do to help with your mental health and boost it too is you can do a daily check-in every single day for 2 minutes. Review your accomplishments for that day so you feel more fulfilled and accomplished on a regular basis. Do you need greater connection with others to have a greater sense of belonging and meaning in your work? Sometimes that's part of what impacts people professionally. And it's a good idea, we find, if you are experiencing a lot of negative thinking. And on the next slide, we've got a great book to recommend. Keep a journal so that you can start to kind of track what your negative thinking is as it relates to what's going on for you professionally. So you can see what those themes are and start to address that negative thinking. This is a great book that we use with our clients or recommend to them. It's called Taming Your Gremlin. You can get it off of Amazon, and it's a really short and easy read. That's part of why I love it, because I don't have a lot of patience. And I think I have, a little bit of ADHD. So reading through this book can help you understand their 3-step process to dealing with the negative thinking that impacts all of us. It's just part of being human. It's totally normal, but we need you to start noticing that negative thinking as one of your action steps too, because the sooner you can push that stuff aside, talk back to it, change that negative thinking, the better mentally you're going to feel as well, personally and professionally. Couple of action steps that we wanted to share here, and then we'll go to our last 2 tips here for today. There's some examples or possible suggested things depending on what's going on for you with your mental health. We are not saying for anyone that you have to take on all of these action steps. Our job here is to kind of throw out ideas and you pick and choose what's best for you. If you need to get a little bit more exercise and just get outside a little bit more, there's, get out and walk around your building, walk around the block and go back in. Like any little break and getting out in nature can help a lot. If you are bad about not taking breaks or skipping lunch or, whatever it is, set timers for yourself on your phone. Adjust your workspace so that it makes you feel better. Pictures of friends and family. Bring in a plant. Get a goldfish. Like, I know that might sound silly, but small things in your workspace can actually help you feel calmer, more peaceful. And if it's diet or positive thinking that you need to work on, there's some suggested action items here. And finally, as we said, there's so many more great resources for online or remote therapy that can be so incredibly helpful for when you need to go deeper with any of these issues that we're talking about today. Let's talk about step number 4. And we really think it's a good idea to not just assess your current career path, but this can help you using our ideal career model listed on the slide here, can help you identify what's working at your current job and what's not working. So here's what we want you to do on the right-hand side. Go through the model, starting with fulfillment at the bottom, go across to the left and then up, and then across to environment and compensation. And we want you to look at each of these components of your job and your career path. Rank them on a scale of 1 to 10. Where is it now in each area? How do I feel about my work environment? Am I using my strengths in a way that I want to? Am I, enjoying the majority of the tasks that I have to perform? Do I feel fulfilled in my professional life? And where do I feel most fulfilled? And can I do more of that if it's possible? Am I leveraging my education and experience in the way that I want to? Or am I feeling less challenged and kind of burned out? So I need to take a class or something like that. Is the work environment and my role and my team and the people I work with client-wise a good fit for my personality type? And then finally, am I being compensated in a way that feels good for me? Then we want you to identify, after you do the scale of 1 to 10, identify where the inconsistencies are. And that is part of what could be causing things to be out of balance and out of fulfillment, and therefore impacting your mental health. The reason why we like this career model, this is a model that I developed after doing this for 25 years. And the reason why we like this is because it helps you be really objective about what exactly is really going on with your job. When we're dissatisfied or having trouble, understandably, we're emotional, and we tend to everything gets swirly in our head, like we're in spin cycle in the dryer. And it can be really, really helpful to sit down and say, okay, Let me think about this more objectively, see what's really going on. And you may notice, for example, that the majority of your dissatisfaction is in the work environment. So you might then say to yourself, okay, what can I do about that, if anything? Can I adjust my workspace? Can I ask to be, to work on a different team? Or can I, adjust my time a little bit to work with one team member that I like a lot more than a different one? We realize that you don't have total control over your time and everything else. You have a boss, you have, constraints. I get that. But what we want you to do is think about any small thing that you could do or adjust. And if you find, gosh, this really isn't the right place for me or the right career path, then you may need to consider moving on to something else. Now, as part of setting meaningful goals, like we talked about earlier, to use this model in a different way, we'd also suggest that you create a vision statement, kind of like the life balance wheel, for each area of the model. If each one was at a 10, what would that be like for you? That can help you identify a goal for each area and a tangible action step that might be best for you for your situation and where you are now. And if you feel like you need help with this, please feel free to reach out to us. Our coaching services are fantastic. We get a fantastic rating from our clients. They love working with us. We love what we do. And I'd be happy to chat with you for a few minutes about our services, or if you know a friend or family member, feel free to refer them our way. Happy to talk with them. The way you can set that up is you can either go to our website and there's schedule a consult on there. That's what we call it, as a free consult. Or you can email us at admin@createyourcareerpath.com and I'll send you the link. The call is always with me directly so that we can figure out if we're a good fit to work together, which coach on my team would be best, and which package and option would be best for your needs. So here's what we want you to do to set those meaningful goals. Piggyback on what we talked about all so far today, and attach your life balance goals to those career and personal values. Because when you attach your goals to your values, they're going to be that much more meaningful. They're going to be that much more effective for you. Attach your goals to your values and the ideal career model as well, because those are going to be the right goals for you to achieve and set so that your work life can be in better balance inherently and therefore have a better influence on your mental health. And add balance to your strategic career plan. If you don't have one, we have a template, and that's one of the things we do with our clients. So we're happy to do some coaching with you on that. But we want you to add, self-care in some way, shape, or form to your strategic career plan. You don't have to share it with your boss or anybody else, but have it in there, because if you're not performing at your peak, nobody else is going to be happy either. Like, you're not going to be happy and you're not going to be as successful and effective, I guess is the best way to say it. Let's talk about step number 5 before we head off today. Few things that you want to be thinking about here. Setting personal limits. When you're okay to check and respond to emails. It's going to be twice a day, midday, or whatever it is. Take a mental health day. Use an app to track your time. Use an app for meditation. Identify when you're at your best during the course of your day and structure out your week as well. The more structure you have for your day, like when you work on certain things, and the same for your week, the better off you're going to be, because you won't have to be scrambling to figure out what your priorities are for each day. You'll have more of a plan, and you can choose when it's best for you to work on these certain tasks when you're at your best. And as part of setting boundaries, there's several different things here, and we won't read them out because you can check these out on the recording, but there's several different things that you can do for your boundaries, whether you need to make a commitment to close your door sometimes. So if you need to make a commitment to start your day with greater mindfulness, or just slow yourself down a little bit so that you're tackling each task more mindfully. It could be to get more organized and streamline things, or it could be to ask for some help if you really feel like you need it. And what I mean by this is inside of work, like, do you need support with some of your tasks or your projects? And is this something that you could talk to your boss a little bit? We talk about getting support here on this next slide as also getting an accountability partner, whether it's a mentor, friend, family, a coach like us, to help you stay accountable to the boundaries that you're committing to the goals that you're committing to. You can also leverage technology There's so many different apps out there for whether it's meditation or tracking your time or anything else. And there are two websites that we like for therapy assistance too. And we just listed those on the slide as well. So there's a reason why with Weight Watchers, right, they have group support, because when people get help, they achieve their goals faster and more effectively, and they're more likely to. So we really want you to please take advantage of everything that we've talked about today, our suggested action items, and feel free to reach out to us if you feel like you need some additional coaching support. We can talk for a few minutes, decide what might be best for you. Before we go, I would love it if you had one action item that you would take away from today. We've got a few suggestions here. And please feel free to share with me any questions that you have via email after our session today. And also you can send us an email to set up a free consult. Be happy to talk with you. I hope this was helpful for you. Thank you for attending. Look out for the recording.